Okay, so I'm back with another rant. I'm back with another rant. Forget it. I don't like that shot. Let's move this over here. Let's see this looks like. A bit better, maybe. There's nothing in the background there. Yeah, much better. What was that weird thing? Oh my word. We'll be right in a second, right? Okay. Okay, so starting now. Okay, this is Pete, back with another Pete rant. Today I'm talking about a few things, but the first one, the main one, is the Acolyte and the Star Wars Acolyte cancellation that's just happened recently, and my sort of thoughts on that. And I can't remember if I did a video on this or not, but basic thoughts on the Acolyte was it wasn't good. Like, I really grew to seriously not like it. I mean, it began sort of okay, and I wasn't sort of immediately on the hate train for it like quite a lot of Star Wars fans were, and I'm always willing to give Disney Plus shows a chance, to be honest, because I do think some of them are good. Some of them that other people have hated I think are good. Like, I think Obi-Wan's pretty good. I liked bits of the Book of Boba Fett, well, bits of it were quite shit, but certain bits I really liked as well. Like Mandalorian seasons 1 and 2, not so much season 3, but I can't hand on heart say all the Disney Plus stuff has been bad. Andor was fantastic. So I'm certainly not predisposed to hating every single thing that Disney does. And I was, when it was first announced years and years ago, there was a D23 when they announced loads of shows, and this is one of the ones that like really piqued my interest, and I was like, what I imagined from what the pitch was nothing like what the actual show was. And I don't know whether it got developed, things got changed or what, but the show itself, I'm not going to go into it here because that's video. Well, it's a different video, but personally, I did not like it. I didn't like the acting. Apart from a couple of characters, the acting was uniformly pretty bad. It was like something off the CW. The story was just all over the place. It started off as like a murder mystery, and it turned into some stupid Twilight romance with a Sith. It was just awful. Like, the lines were dreadful. The main girl couldn't act for shit. She was dreadful. Couldn't emote. And the twists that were in it were like, you could see them a million miles away, and they weren't great twists, really. Everyone goes on about the lightsaber fights being so good, but only a couple of them were really good, and nothing was as good as what we've seen in the prequels. Like, some of them were good, but one or two of them, it was obscured by trees, you couldn't really see it. And again, the logic of it, the whole logic of that show is completely bullshit. Like, the fact that you have one Sith dude against 10 Jedi and he just kills them all, like, how could that even happen? Like, what are those 10 Jedi doing? Just stood there, like, letting themselves get killed. It's not well put together, you know. There's a way of showing that and doing that, but you've got to have a shit hot fight choreography for it to work, to believe that one Sith dude could take down like 12 Jedi or something. But it wasn't believable the way it was portrayed that he could do that. And then his whole twist where it was like, oh, the Sith are repressed. It was almost like the Sith was being presented as like a lifestyle choice, like, oh, well, you can choose to be a Sith, or choose to do the dark side, and then you're branded as Sith, and then you repress the Jedi repressing you. It's like, no, it's like being a criminal, it's equivalent of terrorism. It's a false version of a terrorism, because it's not just like a life choice you make, or some forcing you to use the Force a different way. It's like you're literally using the Force for your own personal gain and fucking everything else up. So that's why, anyway, I'm getting off the point. I'm really getting off the point. I'm starting to hack into how bad I hate the Acolyte, and I really hated it by the end. Like, it's between that and Ahsoka's, which was worse, but at the end of the day, I think that did more damage than Ahsoka did. Like, Ahsoka was poor in a lot of ways and kind of bland and boring, but there was a couple of good characters and there's a couple of good things in it. I like Ray Stevenson's character. It's a shame the character actually passed away, because he was actually the best thing about it. There was one episode that had a cool flashback of Anakin in that was really good. So there was a couple of things that were good, and it still felt like it fit into Star Wars continuity in some kind of a way. Acolyte just didn't. It didn't feel like it was even Star Wars in any way, really. And the way they messed up the Jedi and then shoehorning in Plagueis and Yoda at the end was just pathetic. It's such a pathetic attempt to try and beg for a second season. And this is the thing about the cancellation. It was obvious it was going to happen. Like, I think anyone with half a brain knew the amount of money they spent on that show. They spent 180 million on the show, more than what they did to make Obi-Wan, and it looks shit. It looked like crap. I was like, this doesn't even look as good as the first season of Mandalorian. Like, what? Where is all the money gone? Like, I don't get how this budget of the show doesn't reflect what we're seeing, especially when you consider it's a House of a Dragon. Consider other high prestige shows at like half the budget, and it just looks like shit. It doesn't look good, and it didn't bring the audience in. And you know, the Nielsen numbers came out. I know that the Nielsen numbers are sort of a rough barometer everyone uses to sort of gauge whether a show did well streaming, and it's like the number of minutes watched for so many weeks or something. So it's not, and you know, there's all sorts of caveats with that. It's only in America. There's all sorts of caveats where it's not an absolute figure, but it's a good indication. You know, and it's an indication that mainly people use to justify whether something's doing well or not. And the Nielsen figures, again, because they're 3 or 4 weeks behind, by the time the figures came out for the last episode, for the you know, the finale, should we say, the figures were not good. They were not good. And they were trying to say at the start, oh, it was really big, but it wasn't actually. Even at the start, it wasn't even as good as what Obi-Wan did, what Mandalorian did, because you've got to compare it to the shows that Disney had made. I mean, Andor didn't do great viewing-wise, but it got great critic reception. And as much as the critics wanted to love The Acolyte, they couldn't give it a great reception because it wasn't a well-written show. It really wasn't. Like, you couldn't get around the ridiculous nature of the show. And by episode 6, the whole thing, I think episode 7, the whole thing completely fallen apart. By the time you got to the reveal of these mystery box things, it was rubbish. And I don't understand why this mystery box thing, I guess it's J.J. Abrams' fault. It's not just with this, it's a lot of the shows. It's become a driving force of a narrative when it never was part of that series. Like, oh, I think Becky's coming down. If she is, I'll just stop it. Anyway, getting to the point, because I'm going off the point. The point is, well, what I didn't like about it, it didn't do well numbers wise. It did not do well. And I was talking to Bro about this earlier, and he was talking about business and business decisions, and he was saying often business is much more straightforward than people think. It's not really complicated. There's not loads of politics to it. And, you know, the show didn't get renewed. And it was obvious it was going to get renewed. It was obvious from the numbers. And then D23 came and went, nothing announced. So obviously, as soon as D23 went and he didn't announce second season of Acolyte, I knew I was like, well, it's cancelled then. They obviously aren't renewing it because they would have announced it D23. And they were teasing all these great things from Star Wars, and it was just skeleton crew. So if they really wanted to announce a second season of Acolyte, it would have been there. So if it wasn't announced then, I was like, it's pretty obvious it's gone. It's been cancelled. Or not renewed, or whatever you want to call it. And then it finally dropped, it was cancelled. Oh my word, the sort of amount of people who were just moaning and complaining and like, the racists have won, you buckle to the racists have won. And even the people in the side were like, yes, this is a triumph for us. It's like, no, it's not about either of those things. It's nothing to do with the politics. It's to do with the fact that the show wasn't very good. But more than that, it didn't bring in the numbers. If it brought in the numbers, it wouldn't matter how shit it was. I mean, Last Jedi was also very controversial, really controversial between Star Wars fans, but it made money. So they weren't too bothered. They were like, it's made loads of money, it's made over $1 billion, so that's fine. But Acolyte didn't do it. So essentially, that's why. And that's it. That's what I'm saying about it for now. It was a show that didn't do well. But it's not a victory for anyone. It's just a show that didn't do well.